Good evening to one and all. On behalf of Indus International Research Foundation, I welcome you all to the 7th session of webinar series on important battles of Indian subcontinent. In this webinar series, eminent scholars from Indian subcontinent and other foreign nations are delivering their talks on the known and unknown battles fought on the Indian subcontinent, which had an impact on the society, culture, polity, economy, etc. In this session, we are going to have a talk on Third Battle of Panipat by Major General Chandrasekhar Sawant, AVSM, SM, retired, and our session chair is Professor Madhumita Bandyopadhyay. Now, I will request General Secretary of IIRF, Group Captain Rajshekhar Mehta, Shaurya Chakra, for introducing IIRF.
Thank you, Dr. Piyush. It's very heartening to see that on the platform of Indus International Research Foundation, which in short we call IIRF, is hosting this webinar series, and which has got a very popular subscription among the academics and students more. And we do have people coming from other walks of life, from defense, who are participating in this. And there are some very interesting battles that have been discussed and the videos made, and it has been circulated. So we will continue this, as Dr. Badvia has already mentioned in his introduction. I will restrict myself to just give the new people who have first time joined a brief introduction to the organization, the platform on which this webinar series is being hosted. Ladies and gentlemen, Indus International Research Foundation is a Delhi-based think tank. And we also have our centers at Bangalore, and we are a registered society in USA also. So we have a branch in USA which is very active. And they also do a lot of activity in our collaboration. So this foundation is part of a global network of scholars, professionals, and veterans based in India, and as I mentioned, also abroad, mostly in US. The foundation focuses primarily on international relations. That is our main thrust area, because majority of our program comes on international relations, strategic studies, and security related issues. But we also are very keen and very focused on Indian heritage, history, political economy, and security studies. Now, our organization is led by a group of experts with decades of international academic and domestic policy experience. Ladies and gentlemen, IRF India engages with government, policymakers, academics, students, industries, and civil societies to provide insightful and fresh analysis of global trends. IRF, through its various activities, align itself with India's challenging role as an emerging world leader. Foundation also runs special programs for veterans. IIRF has on its panel an array of very high-profile personalities from civil services, defense, academics, as patrons, advisors, who guide the research effort of this organization. Research and publication being its main activity, IIRF maintains high editorial standard for the material published at its website. We also sponsor research projects, organize interviews, panel discussions, debates, seminars, publication of books, journals, and reports that constitutes our core activity. You see, uniqueness of IRF lies in the fact that it seeks solution to the national and international problems through the prism of Indian ethos, philosophy, and civilizational wisdom. We believe that if mankind is to survive as a civil society, There is no alternative other than to share the resources of the universe for the benefit of all. Foundation also endeavors to prepare India for facing the challenges of the 21st century as an economic and knowledge power, and tries to contribute with bits in this noble cause. We believe in the Indian wisdom contained in Vedas that says, nature is the sole owner of all treasures in the universe, and there is enough for everyone. Ishopinism. With this quote, I will hand over to Dr. Piyush to continue with the session, and which everybody is looking forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now I will request President of IARF, Brigadier C. Sandeep Kumar, sir, for his address.
Thank you, Piyush. And in the outset, I would want to welcome General Sawant, my regimental officer, and also Dr. Madhumita Bandyopadhyay for conducting this, agreeing to speak about Battle of Panipat, third Battle of Panipat, and it's a great opportunity for us. Like Piyush has mentioned, Dr. Piyush has mentioned, Rajshekhar Mehta has mentioned, to have a seminar or a webinar or a year-long webinar based on various battles fought in India from time immemorial till date. So the idea is to get the details onto a book finally after this, and come out with all these specific historical events and what lessons we have learned over a period of time. Because this is what I have noticed: the lessons are only in the books, not being applied, and there are many lessons which we have to learn now, especially whatever is going on now, whatever is happening now. There are a lot of things we could learn from what Shivaji Maharaj did and various other rulers in this country did, and learn from that to be safe as citizens, as also safe as armed forces personnel. Without much ado, I would now hand over the mantle to Piyush, Dr. Piyush, so that we can start with the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I take the privilege to introduce our speaker and our session chair. Our speaker is Major General Chandrasekhar Sawant. He was commissioned on 14th March 1971 in 8th Maratha Light Infantry. He fought Operation Cactus Lily in Gulmarg sector and Lipa Valley. He served in all operations undertaken by Indian Army till 1998, to include Operation Bajrang, Operation Rhino, Operation Meghdoot. Took over 6th Maratha Light Infantry in Jammu and Kashmir in 1991. Entire command tenure was in Operation Rakshak. He was wounded twice while fighting the Kashmiri terrorists, was awarded Sena Medal for gallantry, followed by COAS Commendation and GOC-INC, Northcom Commendation. He took over a brigade as part of offensive formation during Operation Parakram in Rajasthan sector, was awarded GOC-INC Westcom Commendation. Has been Deputy Commandant and Commandant of the Regimental Center, took over 22 Infantry Division, which was part of the Strike Corps, was awarded AVSM for excellent work, subsequently superannuated as COS 33 Corps. After superannuation, served for 8 years in corporate sector, settled at Bangalore, presently settled at Bangalore. He is now practicing fingerprint analysis, numerology and graphology as a patient to help the needy. Today's session chair is Professor Dr. Madhumita Bandyopadhyay. She is the head of the Department of History and professor at Srimati P.N. Doshi Women's College, Ghatkopar, Mumbai, affiliated to SNDT Women's University. With an academic career spanning over 28 years, she is a distinguished historian specializing in colonial Indian railway history. Professor Bandyopadhyay is a recognized PhD guide at SNDT University and actively teaches at the PG level across various institutions. She has presented over 50 research papers at national and international conferences and has published extensively in UGC care listed journals. She has delivered keynote addresses at various national and international conferences and has been invited to serve as chairperson at many of them. She has been the recipient of numerous academic awards, including the Guru Dronacharya Puruskar, and has held prominent positions such as chairperson of the Board of Studies in Foundation Courses at SNDT University and member of several Board of Studies. Professor Bandyopadhyay continues to contribute meaningfully to the field of Indian historiography. Now I hand over the session to the session chair, Professor Madhumita Bandyopadhyay.
Thank you, Dr. Piyush Bhatia, for that kind introduction. As a part of the webinar on important battles of the Indian subcontinent today, we will have the 7th session on the topic Third Battle of Panipat by the distinguished speaker, Major General C.D. Sawant, AVSM, SM. The Third Battle of Panipat was fought on 14 Jan 1761, and this marked a decisive turning point in the subcontinental history, halting Maratha expansion in the north. It reshaped the regional power balances, setting the stage for the rise of the British East India Company. Its strategic lessons on coalition warfare, logistics, and leadership still resonate with military scholars and historians today. And today we have one of the most illustrious, distinguished speaker with us. So I would like to invite our distinguished speaker, Major General C.D. Sawant, AVSM, SM, to share his insights on this pivotal war. Over to you, sir. And please, all the audience here, please join me in giving him a warm virtual welcome. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Anne. Dr. Madhumita Bandyopadhyay, who's chairing the session today. Brigadier C. Sandeep Kumar, who's the president of Indus International Research Foundation. Dr. Piyush, who's the director of this organization. Group Captain Mehta, who's the general secretary of the foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm indeed grateful to you all, and especially to Indus International Research Foundation, for giving me an opportunity to present to you the Third Battle of Panipat. I am from Maratha Light Infantry, as has been told to you people. 95% of our men come from Maharashtra. So the Maratha history is very, very dear to us. As regards Third Battle of Panipat is concerned, not many people know the details about this battle. Actually, this battle can be summed up in 2 sentences, which most of the people know. Number 1, the Marathas lost in this battle, and Abdali never could return to India, and that's it. So I will make an endeavor to explain to you as to what happened and what were the causes of the battle and how it culminated and what was the aftermath. There have been 3 battles of Panipat. First battle was in 1526, which was fought between Babur and Ibrahim Lodi. Second battle took place in 1556 between Akbar and the local king, Hemu. And the third battle of Panipat, which was a very decisive battle which changed the history of Indian subcontinent, was fought in 1761 between Ahmad Shah Abdali and the Marathas. This is where Panipat is located and is about 1500 kilometers away from Pune, which was then the capital city of the Peshwas. Before I get on to the battle, we must understand as to how the Maratha Empire was formulated and subsequently was converted as Confederacy. It was Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj from 1630 to 1680, in 50 years, fought hard battles. At the age of 19, he got into the battlefield. and subsequently passed away in 1680. And he was the one who happened to establish what we call as Swaraj in Maharashtra and the adjoining area. He was succeeded by his son, Chhatrapati Sambhaji Maharaj, who had a very short reign from 1681 to 1689. And that is the time Aurangzeb himself came along with his huge army from Delhi into Maharashtra. And in 1689, Sambhaji Maharaj was captured, was very badly treated. His eyes were gouged out, his arms were cut, his entire skin on the body was removed, and he died a very miserable death because of Aurangzeb. That was the kind of atrocity which was done to this great king. After him, his son, Shahu, along with his mother, Yesubai, were kept by Aurangzeb as hostages in Delhi to check the Marathas. But it was not to happen because later on, after the demise of Chhatrapati Sambhaji Maharaj, his brother Chhatrapati Rajaram Maharaj took over the reins of the Maratha Empire. His also was a very short-term empire, and all through his 11 years of his reign, they were marked with constant struggle against the Mughals. And subsequently, he was succeeded by his infant son, Shivaji II, under the regentship of his wife, Rajmata Maharani Tarabai. After his demise, it was Maharani Tarabai who, as a regent, took over the reins of the Maratha Empire from 1700 to 1708. She also fought very bravely against the Mughal rule, especially in the Konkan area. And she also defeated Mughal forces of Aurangzeb in several battles and expanded the Maratha Empire. As we all know, Aurangzeb passed away in 1707 at Aurangabad itself. This man had come to subjugate the Marathas and destroy Maratha Empire from Delhi personally, but who could never go back to Delhi as the so-called emperor of Mughal Samraj. So it was in Aurangabad that he breathed his last. In 1708, Chhatrapati Shahu Maharaj, who was the son of Chhatrapati Sambhaji Maharaj and was kept as a hostage in Delhi, came to Maharashtra and took over the reins of the Maratha Empire. Actually, the cunning Mughals had released him in 1708 because at that particular time, Maharani Tarabai, as a regent of her son, Shivaji II, was ruling the Maratha Empire. And the Mughals thought that by inserting Shahu Maharaj into Maratha Empire, they are bound to keep fighting with each other and leave the others apart. But that was not to be. Subsequently, of course, both the Shahu Maharaj and the forces of Maharani Tarabai fought with each other in the bloody Battle of Khed, and subsequently Shahu Maharaj was crowned as Chhatrapati of the Maratha Empire. Shahu Maharaj was brought up in the Mughal era. He was brought up in Delhi. So he was used to goodies that were being offered to him in Delhi. But notwithstanding that, the Maratha power and influence extended to central and western India, which had created a strong Maratha empire. And after his death, his ministers and generals, such as the Peshwa Bhatts, who were in Pune, their lieutenants Shinde from Gwalior, Holkars from Indore, Sena Sahib Subha Bhosle of Nagpur, and Sena Khaskhel, Gaikwad of Baroda, administered their own sections of the Confederacy under a roots coalition under the orders of the Chhatrapati. Shahu Maharaj was the king who appointed the Peshwa, that is Panta Pradhan, that is the prime minister of his confederacy. And in 1713, he appointed Balaji Vishwanath as his first Peshwa. Balaji Vishwanath was not only a good warrior, but a very cunning one and a great diplomat. He was the one who ensured release of Maharani Yasubai, that is mother of Shahu Maharaj, from Delhi in 1719. You need to remember that Shahu Maharaj was inserted in Maratha Empire in 1708, but mother continued to be kept hostage in Delhi till 1719, and it was only at the behest of Balaji Vishwanath, the first Peshwa, that she was released by the Mughals. And there onwards, the seat of Peshwas, there onwards was located at Pune. From 1720 to 1740, son of Balaji Vishwanath, that is Bajirao Ballal Balaji Bhatt, was appointed the second Peshwa. To the people who are interested in Maratha history, he is better known as Bajirao the First. He expanded Maratha kingdom from 3% to 30% of the Indian territory. He was an accomplished horseman, and his cavalry battles were well known for their speed and ferocity. This was what is being shown in orange was the Maratha Empire, which was expanded by Bajirao the First. The blue arrows show as to how fast and how far his cavalry forces moved and destroyed the enemy. After the demise of Bajirao the First, from 1740, his first son, Balaji Vishwanath, his full name was Bajirao Ballal Balaji Bhatt, was appointed as Keshwa. He is better known as Nana Sahib in Maratha history. He was, of course, appointed as a Peshwa despite the opposition from Maratha nobles. The Third Battle of Panipat was fought during his stint. He was used to live a colorful and lavish life, and because of his lifestyle, the Maratha Confederacy had gathered huge debts. As to have a relief from his debt, he sent his younger brother, Raghunath Rao, who is also known as Raghova Dada, to north to protect Delhi from Afghans, as also to accrue taxes and tributes from the vassal states. Just to have a look at as to what was there in 1750 in India, you had a huge empire of Marathas, or you can say confederacy. You can see the Mughal Empire, which has shrunk to whatever was in green. And in the north, you can see a red area, which has been shown as Rohilas. These Rohilas were people of Pashtun origin, and they are the ones who had captured this particular area and had kept it for themselves. This was, of course, part of the so-called Mughal Empire. So you can imagine how strong or weak were the Mughals that a small band of Rohilas could capture a huge chunk of their territory and keep it with them. And this particular area was known as Rohilkhand. In the northwest was in blue is of course the Afghanistan. In between the Maratha Empire and Afghanistan were the Sikhs. Eastwards, we had Sindh, Kutch. Down below, toward the south, we had Hyderabad, Mysore, Sira, and Karnataka. So this is how the map of India looked in 1750 AD. I would like to introduce you to the important personalities of the Third Battle of Panipat. First was, of course, is Ahmad Shah Durrani. He's also known as Ahmad Shah Abdali. He was the first Shah and founder of Durrani Empire in Afghanistan. He's often regarded as the founder of modern Afghanistan. Throughout his reign, Ahmad Shah fought over 15 major military campaigns, 9 of them being centered in India. And he rarely lost a battle. And of course, he was the one who defeated the Marathas in the Third Battle of Panipat. The next one is Ahmad Shah Durrani, who was the son of Ahmad Shah Abdali. In 1757, he was appointed as Timur Shah as the governor of Punjab. But this boy was a minor, and therefore Durrani Commander-in-Chief Jahan Khan assumed the control of the administration. Shuja-ud-Dawla was a son of Mughal Grand Wazir Safdarjung and was the third Nawab of Awadh, that is today's Lucknow. His decision about whom to join as an ally in the Third Battle of Panipat was one of the most decisive factors that determined the outcome of the war, as lack of food due to Afghans cutting the supply lines of Marathas was one of the reasons that the Marathas could not sustain the day-long battle. Their forces were weak due to starvation when also fighting facing sun. Sadashirao Bhau, who was leading the Marathas, also tried to reason with Shuja-ud-Dawla and requested him to come on to the Maratha side, but subsequently it was the Islam which reigned supreme and Shuja-ud-Dawla joined Ahmad Shah Abdali. Najib-ud-Dawla was also known as Najib Khan Yusufzai. He was an Afghan Yusufzai Rohilla who earlier served as a Mughal serviceman but later deserted the cause of the Mughals and joined Ahmad Shah Abdali in 1757 in his attack on Delhi. He was also a house chief of Rohilkhand and in 1740s founded the city of Najibabad in Bijnor. And that particular city continues to exist even today. He was one of the key factors and instrumental in winning the Third Battle of Panipat. He began his career in 1743 as an immigrant of Yusufzai's clan and became a soldier. Subsequently, became an employee of Imadul Mulk, but got alerted from growing influence of Marathas, and he invited Ahmad Shah Abdali in 1757 to attack on Delhi and secure the Muslim place in India. Surprisingly, this is a big question mark in the history of Marathas that Mallar Rao Holkar, who was the founder of his kingdom in Indore, treated him as his son. And despite Najib's anti-Hindu stance, Mallar Rao continued to protect him. This is just a brief about Rohilas. This is the area shown in green. which was taken over from, captured from Mughals by Rohilas. They're basically a community of Pashtun heritage and found Rohilkhand, as is well known. The Rohilas, of course, are found all over Uttar Pradesh, but are more concentrated in Rohilkhand regions of Bareilly and Muradabad divisions. Nanasaheb Peshwa was the third Peshwa, elder son of Bajirao the first. He was the Peshwa when the third battle of Panipat took place. However, he never moved to the Panipat. He was always there in Pune. Sadashirao Bhau Bhatt. He was the son of Chimaji Appa. Chimaji Appa was the younger brother of Bajirao the first. He was always kept as a finance minister during the reign of Maratha king Rajaram II. However, because of specific reasons that we will come to later on, he was appointed as the leader of the Maratha army to fight the third battle of Panipat. He was made Sarsenapati, that is the commander-in-chief. Vishwasrao Bhatt, this boy was 19 years old when he was killed during the Battle of Panipat. He was the eldest son and heir of Peshwa Balaji Bajirao, that is Nana Saheb. Of course, from his early life, he was trained in administrative matters and exposed to military training since childhood. He died while fighting on the lines during the third battle of Panipat. As to why Vishwasrao Bhatt, a young boy of 19, was sent to fight the dreaded enemy like Abdali is a matter of concern, and we will talk about it later. Mallarao Holkar was a founder of Holkar dynasty at Indore, and he participated in third battle of Panipat. He, along with Raja Surajmal, is said to have advised Sadashirao Bhau, the de facto commander of Maratha army, to leave all their heavy luggage, civilians, and heavy static French-made cannons in any of the Maratha force behind Chambal River and perform traditional Maratha guerrilla warfare against Afghans until they retreat from India. His advice was refused by Sadashirao, partly because he believed in European modernized form of warfare, and partly because Mallar Rao's guerrilla warfare had failed against Afghans in Rajasthan the previous year. Ibrahim Khan Gardi was a South Indian Pathan Muslim. He was a general of Maratha Confederacy. He was an expert in artillery. He had initially served the Nizamat Hyderabad and before working for Peshwa of Maratha Confederacy. As a Maratha general, he commanded a force of 10,000 men, infantry and artillery. And his infantry also held muskets and were very good fighters. Subsequently, in the Battle of Panipat, in the later phase, he was captured and killed by Afghan soldiers. Maharaja Surajmal. He was the ruler of Bharatpur state in present-day state of Rajasthan, and under him, Bharatpur state had they were tributary of the House of Scindia, and they were covered the present-day districts of Agra, Ajmer, Aligarh, Bharatpur, Dholpur, Etawah, Hathras, and all those. His forces did not participate in the third battle of Panipat because his advice was not heeded by Sadashirao Bhau, the commander-in-chief. He, of course, continued to provide food supplies to Marathas till such time the supply was cut off by Afghans. Now, what happened before the third battle of Panipat? In 1756, Afghan forces had plundered Delhi. In 1757, Ahmad Shah Durrani appointed his son Timur Shah as the governor of Punjab. And since he was a minor, Jahan Khan was the commander-in-chief. He assumed the control of the administration. His rule was harsh, and he was forced by Adina Beg Khan, the Mughal governor of Jalandhar Doab, to retreat to the hills and persecuted the Sodhi Babak Singh of Kartarpur. Determined to retaliate, Adina Khan allied with Jassa Singh Ahluwalia, a Sikh general, by paying a large tribute and permitting the Sikhs to plunder Jalandhar Doab, and defeated the Afghans in the Battle of Mahilpur in 1757. Till then, Afghan king Abdali had not appeared in India. In 1758, Adina Beg Khan became uneasy with the growing influence of the Sikhs, and he sought help from Marathas, who had gained control of Delhi after defeating the Mughals in the Battle of Delhi, that is in 1757. He offered the Marathas a large daily payment to assist him in capturing Lahore. Additionally, he persuaded the Sikhs to join forces with the Marathas against the Afghans. He also gained support of Raghunath Rao, that is Raghoba Dada, and together they drove the Afghans out of Lahore. The Maratha and Sikh forces then pursued the retreating Afghans on the horseback, eventually capturing Attock. It may be noted that the Hindus had crossed Indus River, that is Sindhu River, after 700 years. Punjab then came under Maratha rule, with Adina as a Subedar of Punjab in 1758 in return for a yearly tribute of 75 lakh rupees. Raghunath Rao and Mallar Rao Holkar, the two commanders-in-chief of Maratha forces, remained in Lahore for 3 months, after which they retired to Deccan, leaving Adina in sole control of the area. So this was the expanded Maratha Empire in 1759. Attock comes somewhere in this northwestern corner. Because of the expansion of the Maratha Empire till Attock, it brought Marathas into direct confrontation with Durrani Empire of Ahmad Shah Abdali. And therefore, in 1759, he raised an army, the core of which was from Qazilbash, and recruited other troops such as Pashtun tribes, the Kurds, the Uzbeks, and made several gains against the smaller Maratha garrisons in Punjab. He then joined his allies, the Rohilas of Gangetic Doab, the Muslims of northern India, and Shuja-ud-Dawla of Awadh, and formed a broad coalition against the Marathas. He was a great diplomat, and that's how he also connived with the Rajputs to keep quiet when they have to battle the Marathas. To counter this, Raghunath Rao was again supposed to go to north to handle the situation, because he was very well adept into what was happening in the northern India and already had a successful campaign. But he asked for a large number of army soldiers as well as funds, which was denied by Sadashirao Bhau, who was the chief financier of the Maratha army. And he, of course, was cousin and Diwan of Peshwa. And therefore, Raghoba or Raghunath Rao declined to go to North India again. And that is the reason Sadashirao Bhau was made commander-in-chief of Maratha army, under whom the Battle of Panipat was fought. The Marathas under Sadashirao Bhau responded to the news of Afghans' return to North India by raising an army, and they marched north. They traveled from Pune to Panipat and covered a distance of 1500 kilometers. They started from Pune and went all the way to Panipat. And it took them 7 months to cover this entire area. Bhau's force was boasted by some Maratha forces under Holkar, Scindia, Gaikwad, and Govind Pant Bundele from Bundelkhand. Surajmal, the Jat ruler of Bharatpur, also had joined Bhau Sahib initially. This combined army captured the Mughal capital Delhi from an Afghan garrison in 1759. Delhi had been reduced to ashes many times due to previous invasions, and in addition, there being acute shortage of supplies in the Maratha camp. Bhau ordered again sacking of already depopulated society. The Jats subsequently withdrew their support from the Marathas, and their withdrawal from ensuing battle was to play a crucial role in the result of the battle. Surajmal had advised Sadashirao Bhau, because when the Maratha army marched from Pune, it was the ladies of the noble Marathas who called the shots, and they said, and everybody in Maharashtra had taken it for granted that the Marathas will win this battle and defeat Abdali. And therefore, the ladies thought that it was prudent to accompany this force for pilgrimage. They wanted to visit all the pilgrimage areas in North India. And along with the royal ladies went a huge amount of sadhus, sannyasis, and all those people. In Marathi, we call them Badar Bunge. That is the normal man they also wanted to go and pay obeisance to all the deities there in northern India. And this particular force was 2.5 lakhs. And the entire logistics of this 2.5 lakh people who had gone for pilgrimage was dependent on the Maratha army, that is the Sadashirao Bhau. Surajmal knew about this, and that is why he advised Sadashirao Bhau. Firstly, he told him that women, children, old people, families of soldiers, non-combatant should either be left on the other side of Chambal, that is south of Chambal, in Maratha stronghold of Jhansi and Gwalior, or in protection of Surajmal's one of the 4 forts in Jat strongholds. The next issue was he had suggested that large baggage and heavy artillery should not be taken, as they will slow down Maratha movement in the battlefield against Durrani's forces. The artillery, which was commanded by Ibrahim Gardi, was a very heavy artillery. They were French guns, no doubt good weapon systems, but they were very heavy. But they lacked mobility, and it took 8 to 10 bulls to pull each gun in those days through slush and whatever broken ground they had to move on. And that's why this artillery became a very, very heavy thing to move. And that's why Surajmal had recommended that this artillery should be left behind, and let the Maratha army be as mobile as possible. If the Marathas find themselves on losing ground, then quick moving force should be able to move backwards and frantically, easily, and Abdali will not be keen to cross Chambal southwards. Here, this is Chambal River, and he had recommended that in case required, the Maratha army withdraws to Chambal and force Abdali to come southward. And he knew, or possibly could guess, that from here onwards, the Afghans will not venture southwards, because that would be the trap for them, and they'll go back to Afghanistan. But that was not to happen. Route supply line should be kept open so that Maratha army will not face problems in getting supplies during war. One division of Maratha army should be sent to Lahore and to other to east to destroy the supply lines so that Abdali will not be able to secure supplies from his allies for his army. A light cavalry guerrilla warfare was suggested instead of conventional face-to-face warfare, as Durrani was not expected to sustain a long warfare. Subsequently, on arrival of monsoon, both sides would find forces moving much slower, and Durrani was expected to be in much more disadvantage without supplies compared to Marathas, and this would force Abdali to move back to his country. This advice was not accepted by Sadavshirao Bhau, as he had seen that Mallarao Holkar had lost guerrilla tactics against Afghans in Rajasthan. The area in North India was flat plain and not conducive to guerrilla warfare. He had trained his army, especially the infantry and artillery, on European style and was sure of his heavy artillery, that is the French artillery, commanded by Ibrahim Gadi, to be effective against the Afghans in plains. He was also being coaxed by ladies of the noble Maratha houses to let them continue with his army to visit various places of worship and pilgrimage. This, of course, laid a heavy burden on his army, as these people were of much larger strength than the regular army. The regular army was approximately 1 lakh, and these people were 2.5 lakhs. The skirmishes before the battle. Both sides poised for battle. Maneuvering followed, with skirmishes between two armies fought around Karnal and Kunjpura. Abdul Samad Khan, the Faujdar of Sarind, had come to Kunjpura on the banks of Yamuna River, 60 miles to the north of Delhi, with a force of more than 10,000 and supplies for Afghan force. Kunjpura was stormed by Marathas, who were running short of supplies. Aided by the musketeers under Ibrahim Gadi, the Marathas achieved rather easy victory in Kunjpura against an army of around 15,000 Afghans posted there. Many good generals of Abdali were killed. The whole Afghan garrison was killed or enslaved. The massacre of Kunjpura garrison within sight of Durrani camp exasperated Abdali to such an extent that he ordered crossing of Jamuna River at all cost. At that particular time, Afghan forces were towards the northeast of Jamuna, and he wanted to cross Jamuna towards the southwest so that he could tackle the Marathas. Ahmad Shah and his allies on 17 October 1760 broke up from Shahadra, marching south. Taking a calculated risk, Abdali plunged into the river, followed by his bodyguard and troops. Between 23rd and 25th October 1760, they were able to cross at Bagpat, a small town about 24 miles up the river, which is very near Meerut. And unfortunately, this particular crossing was not opposed by Marathas, as they were still preoccupied with sacking of Kunjpura and visit to nearby Kurukshetra, an important Hindu pilgrimage destination. This is where the Battle of Kunjpura had taken place, and 60 miles to the south at Bagpat, Abdali came and crossed over and got into the southern region, and Marathas were left northwards. And this was the one, this particular action of Abdali paid him the dividends, and not opposing the crossing of Afghans at Bagpat proved very fatal for Marathas subsequently. After they failed to prevent Abdali's forces from crossing Yamuna River, Marathas set up defensive works in the ground near Panipat, thereby blocking his access back to Afghanistan, just as Abdali forces blocked theirs to the south. So both the armies were blocking each other's forces. And this led to partial encirclement of Maratha army. In the skirmishes that followed, Govind Pant Bundele was a great fighter with 10,000 cavalry. They were not really formally trained soldiers, was on a foraging mission with about 500 men, and they were surprised by Afghan force near Meerut. An ensuing fight, Bundele was killed. This was followed by loss of contingent of 2,000 Maratha soldiers who had left Delhi to deliver the money and rations to Panipat. This completed the encirclement, and Ahmad Shah had cut off the Maratha army's supply lines. This is the area of Panipat, and Marathas had entered themselves all around Panipat, and they dug up that place. It was well defended. However, the Afghan forces, 3 parts were in south and 1 part was in north. And this is how, and subsequently they encircled the entire Panipat area and cut off the supply lines from Delhi and also from Bharatpur. They were surrounded by Abdali in south, Pashtun tribes, that is Yusufzais, Afridis and Khataks in the east, Shuja, Atai Khan and others in the north, and other Pashtun tribes in the west. And this is how the Maratha army was surrounded by Abdali's forces, and Abdali himself was towards south of Panipat. Unable to continue without supplies or wait for reinforcements from Pune any longer, Bhau decided to break the siege. His plan was to pulverize the enemy formations with cannon fire and not to employ his cavalry until the Afghans were thoroughly softened up. With the Afghans broken, he would move camp in a defensive formation towards Delhi, where they were assured of supplies. This map indicates how the opposing forces were deployed in their formations at 10 o'clock in the morning on 14 January 1767. That is when the battle started. The Maratha lines was formed up to across 12 kilometers across, with the artillery in front, protected by infantry, pikemen, musketeers, and bowmen. The cavalry was instructed to wait behind the artillery and bayonet-wielding musketeers, ready to be thrown in when control of battlefield had been fully established. Behind this line was another ring of 30,000 young Maratha soldiers who were not battle-tested, and then, of course, were the civilians. Civilians, of course, were many orderly men, women, and children on their pilgrimage to Hindi holy places and shrines, as is well known to us. And behind civilians was another protective line of infantry, young, inexperienced Maratha soldiers. On the other side, the Afghans formed a somewhat similar line. Their left was being formed by Najib, the Rohilla, and their right was 2 brigades of troops. Their left center was led by 2 wazirs, that is Suja Uddola with 3,000 soldiers and 50 to 60 cannons, and Ahmad Shah's wazir, Shah Wali, with choice body of 19,000 mailed Afghan horsemen. Mailed Afghan horsemen was the heavy cavalry of the Afghans. The right center consisted of 15,000 Rohillas under Hafiz Rahmat and other chiefs of Rohilla Pathans. Pasand Khan covered the left wing with 5,000 cavalry, Barkurdar Khan and Amir Beg covered the right with 3,000 Rohilla cavalry. Long-range musketeers were also present during the battle. In this order, the army of Ahmad Shah moved forward, leaving him at his preferred post in the center, which was now in the rear of the line from where he could watch the direct battle. Holkars were deployed here. Shindes were deployed next to Holkars. Damaji, Shivdev Pawar and Mankeshwar, other Maratha nobles, were deployed in this location. Peshwe, that is Sadashivara Bhau, and his particular part of the force was in the center. And Ibrahim Khan Gardi's artillery and his musketeers were towards the east. Shah Passan was towards the west, accompanied by Najib on to his right. Awadh, Shuja-ud-Dawla was on right of Najib. Shah Wali's cavalry was next to Awadh. Hafiz was next to Shah Wali, and Rohillas were again towards the northeast. So this is how the forces were deployed at 1000 hours on 14 January 1761. Amir Beg with Rohilla cavalry was also towards the north and on the left flank of the Maratha army and slightly behind the artillery of Gardi. Abdali himself was behind, as I indicated, and the best part was that along with him, he had 12,000 fresh soldiers as reserves. Before dawn on 14 January 1767, the Maratha troops broke their fast with sugared water in the camp and prepared for combat. It may be remembered that for last 3 days, they were hungry, they had not eaten any food, the horses did not get any fodder. They emerged from the trenches, pushing the artillery into position on their prearranged lines, some 2 kilometers from Afghans. And seeing that the battle was on, Ahmad Shah positioned his 60 smoothbore cannon and opened fire. And there commenced the battle. Attack by Gardi musketeers on Rohillas came and they almost destroyed the Rohillas. Attack by Najib was repulsed. Najib tried to attack, but his attack was repulsed. Artillery and musket attacks killed 12,000 Rohillas in this area. The Najib's forces were almost half wiped out. In the second phase, Bhau himself led the charge against the left center of Afghan forces. Afghan forces were under Afghan Wazir Shah Wali Khan. He laid on to them, and sheer force of his attack nearly broke the Afghan lines, and the Afghan soldiers started to desert their position in the confusion. Desperately trying to rally his forces, Shah Wali appealed to Shuja-ud-Dawla for assistance, who was on his left, but the Nawab did not break his position. And that is how the Afghan forces were split in the center. Some rest of the people were on the left and rest of them were on the right. And the breakthrough was achieved in the afternoon. Despite Bhau's success and ferocity of the charge, the attack did not attain complete success, as many of the half-starved Maratha mounts, that is horses, were exhausted. Also, there were no heavy armored cavalry units for the Marathas to maintain these openings. In order to turn the deserting Afghan troopers, Abdali deployed his musketeers to gun down the deserters, who finally stopped and returned to the battlefield. So it was the lack of heavy cavalry that proved decisive, and the Marathas could not exploit the situation by cutting wherein they had cut the Afghan forces into half. What happened around 3 p.m.? Sadashiv Rao Bhau was fighting here, as the flag indicates. The Marathas under Scindia attacked Najib, but Najib successfully fought a defensive action and he kept the Scindia's forces at bay. By noon, it looked as though Bhau would clinch victory for the Marathas once again. The Afghan left flank still held its own, but the center was cut into two and right was almost destroyed by Ibrahim Ghardi's forces. Ahmad Shah had watched the fortunes of the battle from his tent, guarded by the still unbroken forces on his left. This portion, that is 6 and 7, which has been surrounded by this red marker, was almost destroyed by Marathas. And at that time, Ahmad Shah Abdali sent his bodyguards to call up 15,000 reserve troops from his camp and arranged them as a column in front of his cavalry of musketeers. And he had 2,000 swivel-mounted shatrunas or ushtanas, that is the cannons, on the backs of the camels. The camels could sit down and get up, and as they got up, the guns could move on a swivel and could fire over the head of their own soldiers. On the other hand, the artillery of Marathas, though superior, could not fire over the heads of their soldiers. And whenever they fired, it was their soldiers who got the brunt. And that is how Abdali deployed his reserves in the center, which was about to be split by Marathas, but could not be split because the Marathas did not have a heavy cavalry. The Shutardas, because of their position on camels, could fire an extensive salvo over the heads of their own infantry at the Maratha cavalry. Maratha cavalry was unable to withstand the muskets and camel-mounted swivel cannons of the Afghans. These cannons could be fired without the rider having to dismount and were especially effective against a fast-moving cavalry. Another gun which came into force was a gun which is known as Zamzama. This gun was 14 feet 4.5 inches long in length, with a bore at its aperture to 9.5 inches, that is 240 millimeters. It weighed over 4,500 kilos. And this was one of the largest guns ever made in Indian subcontinent. It was cast at Lahore along with another gun of the same size by Shah Wazir, the metal ship of Mughal Viceroy. And under the directions of Shah Wali Khan, who was Wazir of Durrani, ruler of Ahmad Shah, became very effective in the battle against the Marathas. This gun at present is in Punjab University at Lahore. Abdali sent 500 of his own bodyguards with order to raise all able-bodied men out of camp and send them to the front. He sent 1,500 more to punish the frontline troops who attempted to flee the battle and kill without mercy any soldier who would not return to fight. These extra troops, along with 4,000 of his reserve troops, went to support the broken ranks of Rohillas on to the right. The remainder of the reserve, that is 10,000 strong, was sent to aid Shah Wali, who was in the center and still rebelling unequally against the Bhau in the center of the battlefield. These mailed warriors were to charge with the Wazir in close order and at a full gallop. Whenever they charged the enemy in front, the chief of staff and Najib were directed to fall upon their flank. So their flank was also well covered. So this is how 4,000 were sent to protect the right flank and 10,000 heavy mounted were sent where Bhau was fighting. In the final phase, with their own men in firing line, the Maratha artillery could not respond to Shutarnaz and the cavalry charge. Some 7,000 Maratha cavalry and infantry were killed before the hand-to-hand fighting began at around 1400 hours. By 1600 hours, the tired Maratha infantry began to succumb to the onslaught of attacks from fresh Afghan reserves, which was protected by armored leather jackets. Sadashvira Bhau, who had not kept any reserves, seeing his forward lines dwindling, civilians behind, and upon seeing Vishwas Rao disappear in the midst of the fighting, felt he had no choice but to come down from his elephant and lead the battle. So he came down from his elephant, rode a horse, and went into the battle. Abdali had given part of his army the task of surrounding and killing the Gardis, who were at the leftmost part of the Maratha army. Bhau Sahib had ordered Vitthal Vinchurkar with 1,500 cavalry and Damaji Gaikwad with 2,500 cavalry to protect the Gardis. However, after seeing the Gardis having no clearing for directing their cannon at enemy troops, they lost their patience and decided to fight the Rohillas themselves. Thus, they broke the positions, could not protect the flank of the artillery, and went all out on Rohillas. The Rohilla riflemen started accurately firing at the Maratha cavalry, which was equipped only with swords. They had no armor. And this gave the Rohillas the opportunity to encircle the Gardis and outflank the Maratha center, while Shah Wali pressed on attacking the front. Thus, the Gardis were left defenseless and started falling one by one. Vishwas Rao was already killed by a shot to the head, and he had tumbled in his howdah, that is the mount on the elephant, and he was lying there. The Gujarati royal forces, that is the Peshwa's forces, fought till the end. And Sadashvira Bhau continued fighting despite the fact that 3 of his horses were shot out from under him, but he continued his fight. At this stage, the Holkar and Scindia contingents, realizing the battle was lost, merged their forces with one contingent breaking from the Maratha right flank and escaped from the opening in Durrani lines southwards towards Jankoji Rao Scindia, while Jankoji Rao Scindia led the other contingent to reinforce the thinning lines of the Marathas. It is believed that Malla Rao Holkar's forces were permitted to flee from the battle at the behest of Najib. The Maratha front lines remained largely intact, with some of their artillery units still fighting till sunset. And choosing not to launch a night attack, many Maratha troops escaped that night. Bhau's wife Parvati Bai, who was assisting the administration of Maratha camp, escaped to Pune with her bodyguard. Janu Bhintada, along with Nana Fadnavis, under the protection of Malla Rao Holkar's contingent. Malla Rao Holkar always told people that he wanted to protect Parvati Bai, the wife of Sadashirao Bhau, and her people, the ladies along with them, and that is how they could escape. And that is how about 15,000 soldiers managed to reach Gwalior. Reasons for the outcome. Abdali had both numeric as well as qualitative superiority over Marathas. The combined Afghan army was much larger than that of Marathas. Though the infantry of Marathas was organized along European lines and the army had some of the best French-made guns at the time, their artillery was static and lacked mobility against the fast-moving Afghan forces. The mounted artillery of Afghans proved much better in the battlefield than the static artillery of Marathas. Abdali had 4 formidable force multipliers, that is 12,000 reserve troops, his camel-mounted artillery, Zamzama, the biggest artillery gun in the Indian subcontinent, and the heavy cavalry. They also had muskets and leather jackets as their armor protection. And this cavalry made the difference. So these were 4 force multipliers which were deployed by Abdali to win the battle. None of the other Hindu kings joined forces to fight Abdali. Allies of Abdali, namely Najib, Shuja, and Rohila, knew North India very well. He was also diplomatic, striking agreements with Hindu leaders, especially the Jats and Rajputs, and former rivals like Nawab of Awadh, appealing to him in the name of religion. With almost 2 lakh camp followers, including ladies and sadhus who had joined to undertake pilgrimage, it was impossible to fight guerrilla tactics. Moreover, the Afghans were good riders and always equally matched the Maratha horsemen. Lack of funds to buy rations as well as responsibility to feed 2 lakh pilgrims apart from his army took a heavy toll on logistic support. The troops were without food from 11 January onwards. So on 14 January, they were launched into battle. They were hungry for 3 days, including their mounts, that is the horses. Nana Peshwa was uninformed about the state of his army and was crossing Narmada with a relief force and supplies when he heard of the defeat. He returned to Pune and never recovered from the shock of debacle at Panipat. According to Kasha Raja Pandit, it was Nana Sahib's love of pleasure which was responsible for Panipat. He was delayed at Patan, celebrating his second marriage until December 27, when it was too late. Jankodi Sindhya was taken prisoner and executed at the instigation of Najib. Ibrahim Khan Gardi was tortured and executed by enraged Afghan soldiers. The Marathas never fully recovered from the loss at Panipat, but they remained the largest empire in the Indian subcontinent and managed to retake Delhi 10 years later. However, their claim over India ended with 3 Anglo-Maratha wars in early 19th century. Abdali left India at the earliest. Before departing, he ordered the Indian chiefs through a royal farman to recognize Shah Alam II as the emperor. And however, never again in history of India did any foreign force attack India from northwest. This was the last battle in which the foreign force had come from the northwest. To save their kingdom, the Mughals once again changed sides and welcomed the Afghans to Delhi. The Mughals remained in nominal control over small areas in India, but never a force again. Their empire officially ended in 1857 when its last emperor, Bahadur Shah II, was accused of being involved in the Indian rebellion and exiled to Burma. The result of the battle was a temporary halting of further Maratha advances in the north and destabilizations of their territories for roughly 10 years. This period is marked by the rule of Peshwa Madhavrao, who revived Maratha domination following the defeat at Panipat. In 1771, that is 10 years after the Battle of Panipat, Maji Shinde led a large Maratha army into northern India in a counter-offensive in which he, along with others, re-established the fallen Maratha supremacy in the area and punished refractory powers that had either sided with Afghans, such as Rohillat, or had shaken off Maratha domination after Panipat. But their success was short-lived. Crippled by Madhavrao's untimely death at the age of 28, infighting ensued among Maratha chiefs soon after, and they were ultimately defeated and annexed by British and East India Company administration in 1819. I conclude my presentation with the respect and homage to all the brave Marathas who made supreme sacrifice on the battlefield of Panipat. This battle is a matter of great pride for all of us who are part of the Maratha Light Infantry. To commemorate the sacrifices made and to motivate the future generations, we have this painting displayed at the officers' mess of the Maratha Light Infantry Regimental Center at Belgaum, so that the present generation of Marathas and the recruits learn a lesson and continued to follow the footsteps of their ancestors. Ladies and gentlemen, I have finished. If you have any queries, I will make an effort to answer.
Thank you so much, sir, for a wonderful presentation. So we'll just take in questions. If anyone has any questions, you can post it in the chat box. Does anyone have any questions to ask? We had a wonderful presentation here where sir has covered the entire Battle of Panipat. Right from the beginning, started with Shivaji and he ended with the end of the Maratha Empire in 1818. So it was a very vivid description, not only of the war, but before the war, the aftermath of the war. A very, very interesting description of the war and its other parts of it. Anybody has any question, please post it in the chat box. Sir, actually, you've spoken so vividly and so lucidly. I'm sure people don't have any questions because everything was included in it. I mean, people do not really need to ask you anything. You've answered all the questions, I guess. So, sir, I do have some questions. If there is any questions, anybody would like to pose any questions? Well, sir, even I would say that I have also, I found this one of the most, one of the best presentation that I've ever heard. In fact, sir, I was just thinking while you were speaking that it was not just the battles that you have won, but you won the hearts of all of us who are present today in this session. We really enjoyed each part of it. And you have done everything so meticulously, right from the maps that you have collected, the way you have presented everything, the entire maps, which the way you have actually labeled the maps, shown the positions of each and every part of the army. That was tremendous work that you have done, and that was reflecting so well in your presentation. And anyone who would listen to you would definitely be attracted towards Maratha history. You have actually explained the entire Maratha history in this 1 hour, but of course focusing on on this Battle of Panipat. So it was a really, really wonderful session. I really thank you, sir, for this great session that we had. And I would just like to ask you, for example, like you have talked about Surajmal, Holkar, etc., giving advice to Sadashiv Rao Bhau that why don't we have a lighter army? Traditionally, Marathas are known for the lighter army, but in spite of the warnings, he took a heavy army. So what is your opinion, since you've been in the battlefield and you know what a war is like? So what is your opinion? Do you think Suraj Mal, Holkar, they were right in saying that let us go for guerrilla warfare, or let us have a lighter army, let's not take so many people in this warfare?
Madam, number one, Sadashirao Bhau was basically the Diwan of the Peshwa.
Yes, yes,
He was their finance minister.
true.
This particular position was forced upon him because the person who was the main guy, that is Raghava Dada, Raghunath Rao, was very adept in North India.
Absolutely.
He had already captured till Attak. He knew all the people personally. And had he gone, maybe the things would have been different. Secondly, Sadashirao Bhau had not that he had not participated in the battles, but he participated in the battles in southern part of India.
Right.
In southern part of India, majority of battles which were fought by Marathas were battle of siege. You hold a fort, lay a siege around it, sit there. Patience is the virtue, and then the defending forces capitulate. So he was not really adept in the fighting in North India. On top of that, his belief was firmed up because just 6 to 8 months back, while Mallarao Holkar was fighting the Afghans in Rajasthan, he tried to adopt guerrilla tactics, but he had failed. Basically because the Afghans were also good horsemen. So, and in the flat plains, there is no place to hide the forces. Guerrilla warfare is the warfare in which you have a small troop and you hide in different places and attack enemy when he's not expecting you. This was not possible in the plains. So possibly what he had adopted, the stance that was adopted by Sadashirao Bhau to a certain extent was right, but
Yeah.
had he kept his 2.5 lakh dependents behind Chambal,
True.
maybe things would have been different.
Yes.
It is this heavy logistic support that he had to feed these people,
Yes.
spend all his money, twice the amount, was the one which caused them the problems. This is
True.
what I feel. And
Absolutely.
apart from that, the artillery. The artillery was heavy, and the swivel-mounted artillery guns which were used by Afghans made the difference in the final year. And of course, you don't expect the boys who have been hungry for 3 days to fight a decisive battle till the end of the day. So that's why there was a problem. Even the mounts also gave up. So maybe had he left the heavy troops behind, or at least the dependents behind, the things
Civilians.
may have been different. And right from the beginning, right from the time they started from Pune, they had taken it for granted that they will win. And that, I think, made them little complacent.
Laxed. Yes, yes, absolutely. True, true. That's very right, sir. Your analysis is absolutely correct. Sir, also, I was just wondering that you also talked about the French artillery that they had. So the artillery was mostly acquired from the French, is it? By the Marathas?
That's right. That's right. It was acquired from the French.
Okay. So how is it that the Afghans got this idea of, mounting the cannons on top of the camels? Is it a strategy by Abdali himself, or was it traditionally fought in Afghanistan like this?
No, I'm sorry, I won't be able to give you an exact answer because I have not studied this, but I think maybe I'll study this and pass it on to Brigadier Sandeep Kumar as
No,
to where did they get this artillery from. Because, I mean, it's a very, very unique thing that wherein you mount a smaller weapon on the back of the camel, and when you make the camel stand, he's firing over the head of your soldiers. It is a very
absolutely.
unique thing.
Unique.
Where he got it needs little research, ma'am. I'll do that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And also the idea that, wearing the leather jackets by the, the troops. the Afghan troops wearing the leather jackets and therefore protecting themselves. This has been, but even practiced among the Marathas before also. But that was not again taken up in this war, where probably the large number of forces was an obstacle in getting these heavy leather jackets.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
sir, but I was wondering, what is the strategy? Is it just, did Sadashiv Rao really strategize the war? Did he give it a real plan? Like, Shivaji, whenever he fought a war, that was very well planned, very strategically, he thought of everything before. The war was already won by him in his mind before he actually went into the battlefield. So this strategy did Sadashiv Rao really have? Do you think that he lacked that?
I
When-
think so. As a matter of fact, Battle of Panipat was forced onto him because he was surrounded by Afghans. He had nothing to eat, nothing to feed these people. There were 3.5 lakh people who were dependent on him. And just to break the siege, he tried to attack
Right.
and failed. He was wanting to break the siege and go to Delhi and to pick up the supplies, and maybe then subsequently he had a strategy. But as regard the Battle of Panipat is concerned, I think he was surrounded, and this particular battle was forced on him to break through and rush to Delhi to get supplies. So I don't think he had any strategy as regards this particular battle was concerned. Of course, when he deployed his forces 12 kilometers across, that of course that was of course a tactical thing. But as regard the strategy is concerned, there was no strategy employed.
Absolutely.
It's forced on him.
True, sir. Yes. So anybody has any more questions, any comments to make, that is most welcomed. We had a very good session by our Major General Chandrasekhar Sawant. So if anybody has any more comments or questions, they are most welcomed here in the session. Sandeep sir, would you like to say something? I think we can unmute sir. Sir is not audible. Sandeep sir is not audible.
Yeah. Okay. Now I'm audible, I'm sure. So thank you, General Sawant sir. It was a wonderful presentation which you did, which a lot of things I'm sure this would go into the studies when Dr. Piyush is going to compile it, and these things will come up for being included in the syllabus and various other things. And these things have to be brought into the knowledge of young children onwards. I would say from the school onward, this has to come up so that people understand what is the bravery. When you are surrounded all over, then he is still trying to fight to get over it. That bravery which is required today also. So that is where the importance of the presentation will come up. And I'm sure this will come up into a good, part of the book, which is going to get published. And over a period of time, I'm sure this will become part of the syllabus of the history. Thank you very much, sir. In fact, it was great to hear you once again coming out with this presentation, sir. It has been great. And we would like to thank Madhumita madam also, Dr. Madhumita madam also, for chairing this session and asking these final questions about the strategy and about the way why this has caused this defeat. But all the same, this defeat has actually, it's a defeat, but strategically we have ensured that the Afghan forces and things like that, it never came to any other invading force never came from the northwest to India. Thank you.
So there are some more comments which I would like to read to you. There is Dr. Poonam Rana who says, thank you for the presentation. Indrajit Bhattacharya says, thank you, sir, for such a wonderful session. Very elaborate explanation and presentation. Young generation must learn from these experiences. And I also feel what Indrajit Bhattacharya says is absolutely right. So with this, I think anybody else would like to ask any questions? So with this, I'd just like to in succinctly just point out, what exactly sir was I mean, sir's presentation, in fact, I found this session very, very systematically put up, very lucid, full of knowledge. And in fact, I'm amazed that a person who has been in the army was teaching about history as good as I mean, much better than what even a professor of history would do. And in fact, he has put up large number of images in the session, very, very interesting. And therefore, I think it's a meticulous way of putting in this Battle of Panipat. So thank you very, very much, sir, for this wonderful presentation. And I also take this opportunity to thank Indus International Research Foundation for inviting me to chair this session. It has been really a pleasure. I would like to thank Captain R.S. Mehta, the General Secretary of Indus International Research Foundation. I'd also like to thank Brigadier Sandeep Kumar, the President of IIRSF, and of course, how can I forget Dr. Piyush, who has invited me for this for chairing this session. Thank you so much. It has been really a very, very interesting experience for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, Professor Madhumita, madam. On behalf of IIRF, I extend my thanks to the invited speaker, Major General Chandrasekhar Sawant, sir, who had a wonderful presentation on the Third Battle of Panipat, covering almost all the dimensions which a scholar can think. So no questions arose because all answers could be found in the presentation. My sincere thanks to Professor Madhumita Bandyopadhyay, madam, for chairing the session. And in the earlier session, you spoke very well on the Battle of Umberkand 1661 of Shivaji. And that was really a nice presentation. My thanks to all IIRF members, especially General Secretary Rajshekhar Mehta sir, our President Brigadier Sandeep Kumar sir, scholars, students, and others. So our next session will be on the second Saturday of the May month. So that will be the 8th session, and probably Professor Poonam Rana from Nepal will be addressing us. So Poonam Rana madam is here.
Yeah, thank you, Piyush. I'll be there. And I raised my hand. Ma'am, Madhurima ma'am, she didn't see it. Anyway, thank you, sir. And I was agreeing with Sandeep, sir. The history of our country, any history globally, has to be taught to the little children, because then they will become patriotic. They will recognize the real heroes, because the children today are shown Spider-Man, they are shown, I don't know what, Superman, who are just imaginary heroes, and they are copying them. But thanks to, but in India, I think they have made a lot of animations. I think animation is very good for the small children to make heroes out of real heroes of history. So what Sandeep Kumar sir said was very correct, because people don't give importance to history. They say it's a fossilized subject, but it is very, very important. If you want to raise feelings of patriotism towards heroes who really worked hard to safeguard the nation. So thank you so much, sir. And I've studied a little on Maratha War when I was in school in Delhi, but it's all out of my head. And I couldn't join earlier because I was out. And in the last ending part, I was there, but I recollected many things. Thank you, sir, for such a lovely presentation.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. And your session will be on 10th May. We will be listening to the battles fought in Nepal, which has all impacted the Indian subcontinent.
I could have done it earlier, but Mehta sir wanted 3 wars. I had to work on it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you again, one and all.
Thank you.
So I'm stopping the recording.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Beautiful, wonderful session.
Thank you very much, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.